Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode of our new Pacific Tiger Broadcasting series, Bookmarked, where I help you find your new favorite dystopian novel. So for today, we're going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite novels, and that is Shatter by Tahereh Mafi. And so Shatter was first released in November of 2011. But Shatter is in a series of 11 books. So it is a massive series, but it is so fun. So in the series, it has 6 novels accompanied by 5 novellas, and I believe in 2024 she just started writing another one. So it is a very long series, but it is one of my favorites. And we're going to talk a little bit about the setting, and then we're also going to talk about the characters, and then the content. We're going to break down the plot of the story and what I think about it. And then finally, we'll talk about connections, about some other books that if you liked them, you'll probably also like Shatter Me. So let's dive in. So this novel is set in a dystopian setting where a new government called the Reestablishment has taken over. So in this world, the environment is decaying, the food is scarce, animals are dying, the weather is super unstable, and there's a lot of political turmoil. So unlike some other novels like The Hunger Games that kind of explains more of the lead up to the state that the society's in, the series Shatter Me takes a more limited, narrow focus because we really learn everything through the eyes of our main narrator, Juliet. But the setting itself feels super tense, super claustrophobic, and this is because the book actually opens up in the main character, Juliet's prison cell. And so as you can see, this book starts off feeling very confined. The world is very militarized, it's very confined, it's very fractured. But one thing that I really like about this book is how each novel builds upon the original setting until you basically have a whole entire world to explore by the end of the series. So it's super fun. So if you're into world building, you're gonna really like this book because it doesn't just stay in one city. I'm telling you, it literally is so vast, and that's one of my favorite parts. But one thing that I wish the book did have regarding the setting is actually a little map at the beginning, because you know how some books, you open it and there's a cute little diagram of all the terrain? I did wish that the Shatter Me series had this because I can get a little confused sometimes. And if you're having some trouble picturing what this novel might look like in your head, well, no worries, because there is a fantastic amount of fan art on Pinterest, and so hopefully these pictures can help you. So there's this one, and there's this one too, and this one, and finally this one as well. So hopefully that helps. The heart of the novel is the main character, Juliet, who carries the entire series on her back. She is a fantastic character, and so her dilemma is that she has the ability, or the power, to kill anything with just one touch. So, very dangerous, right? And that's why she has been kept in isolation at the beginning of the book for over a year by the Reestablishment, because not only do they recognize how dangerous she is, but also what a valuable military weapon she could become. And I think this main character is so cool because she's a great representation of a normal girl. She has a really cool backstory, but she's also just a girl. She gets scared, she gets afraid, but she's also brave, but she's cautious, and she's funny. And I love that this character is so funny. But another thing that I really love is just the way that the book is written, because it's really from her eyes. So I'll show you. So as you can see, there are some cross-out fragments, and this is because the first book begins as sort of like a diary series. So you really get to connect with the character, and I think that just made me fall in love with her even more. It's so good, guys. But now, let's talk about the 2 main male counterparts that appear in the novel, which I think make it all the more interesting. So the first one is Adam, and he is one of her childhood friends, and he represents safety, hope, and a feeling of home. So he's a very neutral character. He offers her a way to escape the prison. He offers her a sense of safety. So it's a good beginning character, or so the novel would like you to think. So the second male counterpart is a character named Warner, and he's actually a commander for the Reestablishment. So he is one of the people that's actually keeping Juliet in isolation in her prison cell. So off to an interesting start. But he is the main antagonist of the first novel, but I really love how he is not just like a flat villain. Like, he has a lot of layers as well. He's a great foil to Juliet. He also has like hints of vulnerability, and you can really see into his tragic backstory and start developing some empathy. And honestly, he becomes my favorite character on later in the novel. And then another thing that I love about this series is the community, because online there are also tons of people who love this book. So if you go on Pinterest because you're wondering, well, what does this character look like? There is so much cool fan art, so I'm gonna show you some so you can kind of get a little bit of a taste of what the characters look like. So this is the first fan art picture of the main character, Juliet. This is another version of her. And there's also this one. And the last fan art drawing is really cool because it's a drawing of the four main characters that sort of persist throughout the novel. And so on the very far left, you can see one of the main female protagonists who appears later on in the series, named Nareen. And then next to her is Warren, who I've talked about before. And then next to him is Juliet. And on the far right is Kenji. So onto the content, which this novel is full of plot twists. Like, if there was a word, or I guess two words, to describe this novel, it would be plot twist. The whole series, you just wouldn't expect anything that's coming, and that is my favorite thing about reading this. But the first book starts off when Juliet is taken out of her prison cell, out of her isolation, and placed under like supervision of Warner so that he can learn how to weaponize her power to use it in their military. And so book one is filled with escape attempts. It is very, very tense. And this is where the character Adam comes in, because as I said before, Adam is one of the male counterparts, but he also ends up being one of Juliet's cellmates, and they work together to try to escape from Warner. So there's a lot of romantic tension, there's power struggles, and there's the unveiling of a resistance movement. So at the same time that a bunch of intense external conflict is happening in the novel, there's also a lot of inner turmoil with our character Juliet, which makes it an extra interesting read, because it questions themes of identity, power, control, and ultimately self-worth, with Juliet asking a big thematic question that spans throughout the series, which is power inherently corrupting, or does it depend on who wields it? So it gives a really interesting take on that question, but you'd have to read to the end of the series to find out. And another thing that I love about the content of this novel is that it's just really so creative. Like, you could tell that when the author was writing this, she was just having a lot of fun, because there's also a great romantic arc alongside of the underlying dystopian themes. Okay, so let's talk about the main climax and conflict of book number one. So the inciting incident is, as I said before, when Adam, who is Juliet's cellmate, devises a plan to help them escape, and it eventually works. Now, after this, Juliet has finally got out of a year-long isolation, so you can really see her wheels turning. Like, she is conflicted as what to do. So this is where Adam also acts as a good foil to her, because he can help show her around the outside world and kind of alleviate some of those fears. So after they escape, everything starts ramping up, because now Warner and the rest of the Reestablishment are actively looking for them. So it is super tense, and you honestly feel like you are in this world. The author's writing style is so active. Like, you genuinely feel like you are along for the ride with these characters, and that is one of the reasons why I love the author. So after they escape, they meet up with Adam's best friend, whose name is Kenji, and he is also a fantastic, dynamic character with, again, a really cool backstory. So once they meet up with him, they start thinking of ways to join the rebellion, right? And then during all this, the most tense point, the climax of the story, is when Juliet actually gets re-kidnapped. Like, come on, girl. Are we joking? But she actually gets re-kidnapped by Warner, and he confesses his love to her. You're probably thinking that makes no sense. Like, he was literally putting her in prison. Well, that's what the author wants you to think. And so that is the climax of the story, and Juliet is very confused, and then Adam ends up saving her again. But it's I'm gonna say it's like the perfect setup for the rest of the series. But ultimately, the author does a really good job at building and keeping tension throughout the story. Because I feel like some dystopian novels, like even though they have a really action-packed climax, like the tension just still really isn't there building up, and it's kind of just like fight sequence, plateau, fight sequence. Well, this novel is not like that at all. It is literally so interesting at all times, and that is why I fell in love with it, and also read the entire series in 2 weeks. So trust me when I say you will love reading this. And so for connections, if you've liked some of these books, you'll probably also really like the Shatter Me series. So the first one is The Hunger Games. So if you really liked learning about the oppressive regime and having a strong, reluctant, dynamic female protagonist, you also might really want to give this series a try. The second connection is the book Divergent, which is actually my favorite dystopian novel. But if you're really interested in power structures and fractured societies and with the struggle of identity, you'll also love Shatter Me because it really has a good, like, coming of age story arc. And then for the third connection, if you like the book Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, you will probably also love Shatter Me, because if you like superpowered female characters who are trying to escape being manipulated by a fractured political society, you will love this novel. But overall, I absolutely adore this series, and I would rate it a 9.5 out of 10, talking specifically about the first book. It's just because this series has fantastic, dynamic, well-rounded characters. It has a really cool catalyst. It has great conflicts. It's super creative. I think it's really original. The only thing that I wish there was more of is I wish the book developed a little bit more history of the world, backstory of some side characters, but that's just because I love it so much that I literally want to know everything. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's little review.